So let's continue our discussion of understanding by design by going into stage two, determining acceptable evidence. So, what is stage two? So, stage two is where the students show that they understand the material by applying and using the information that they've gained in some type of assessment. So this is where we decide what we're going to use as those assessments. So McTeague and Wiggins come up with six facets of understanding, and these are ways to show that those students have gained the understanding of what we're talking about. So the six facets are: can the student explain what is going on? Can they make a connection um, in their own words to support um, or justify what we've taught them? Um, can they interpret? Um, Let me rephrase that. Can they use interpretation to explain what they've taught? So, can you give them a real world problem and they interpret it and handle it correctly by what we have taught them? Um, can they apply and adjust? Um, so, can they apply the knowledge and adjust it as needed to fit world problems or real world problems? Um, and then the perspective: do they see the big picture? Can they look at something and kind of think outside the box to see the whole picture and not just what's in front of them? Now, the hardest one to show of the six facets of understanding is empathy, and this is where they have to actually their put themselves in place of that person and be able to understand what they're feeling at the time. So that's probably one of the hardest ones to do. And then the last one is self knowledge, and this is just is this is the student aware enough to reflect learning on new ideas, new perspectives, and um, new problems that would arise. So that is, in a nutshell, what determining acceptable evidence is. So what we want to do is come up with some type of measure for how well they have done the transfer. So we use performance task to do this. So in this in what we've got here, you know, you've got the desired results code. So this is the transfer. This is the what we wanted them to learn. The code that we developed is going to go right here. Um, the performance task for that code is going to go in the next column. What do we want them to do? Is it, you know, we want them to do a simulation on a driving simulator where they have to, drive for, 20 minutes making all different kinds of turns. And then the evaluation criteria. What are we looking at that's going to um, make us what are we going to look at that shows that that student has um, mastered or has learned the desired result that we want. Now you can also come up with other codes, quizzes, academic prompts, homework, whatever, and then what other criteria are we going to use to do this? So this is where you do quizzes. This is where you would do papers. If you're going to have them do a paper on natural disasters, because you want them to learn, how FEMA started. Give them, I want you to do a natural disaster in the government response to it from the 17 to 1800s. Then, you're going to develop criteria for that. So, and based on that, Rubik's. What are we going to do with the Rubik's for, if we're going to do, natural disasters, the government response to natural disasters prior to FEMA, you know, what is our criteria going to be? So, number one, it's going to be, did you pick the correct year? You know, if you didn't, we'll go through and put all those in. You know, what was the government? Critique the government response. How did they respond to a natural disaster prior to the 1800s? Was it from private sector? Was it from the governor's office? Was it from, since a lot of places were territory, is there a territorial office that actually took care of it? So this is all the grading Rubik's that we're going to have to develop Rubik's for. What shows the evidence, what doesn't, is it sufficient, does it need revision, and from that on. So this is actually probably one of the easiest stages that you will have in this design. But the one most important thing is that this upper section here has to correlate with the task that you developed in stage one. So you can't say, we want students to know this, but never evaluate them on that. So that has to be coordinated, and they all have to be interrelated. So that's stage two in a nutshell. Stay tuned for stage three. Thank you.